Hello, my friends. Brett Pattison coming at you from the financial capital of the West, Salt Lake City, Utah. Joined by the chairman.
How you doing, Brett?
It's been a while since we've been on a podcast, Brian.
It's been a while.
Is this the first one of the year? Second one of the year. That's what Katie's saying.
Okay.
I lose track because I'm having fun. All right, we've got a great podcast for you today, and it starts with a little bit of a story. Back in 2000, I think it was 16.
Okay.
Brian, here's the situation. We take a youth group down to Moab, Utah, which is beautiful. Arches National Park is by Moab. Beautiful place. And there's the Colorado River going through Moab. And we decide, hey, let's take this youth group river rafting on the Colorado River. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of boring because there was so much water in the river that the rapids were gone.
Yeah.
Because the water was so high. So we're with, 25, young men just floating down the river, and I decide, hey, I'm going to jump out because this is boring in the raft. So a few of us jump out. We got our life jackets on, and we're just kind of cruising down the river. The instructor told me it was safe to jump out. Otherwise, I always follow instructions.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I jump out of the river. Right? Me and a couple other guys. Well, I'm floating down, and all of a sudden, I'm just relaxing, feet up. All of a sudden, I start spinning. And I don't know what the official river term is this, but I was caught in a whirlpool. And there's something in everybody's brains, and I'm going to try to say this right, which is called the amygdala. Okay? And that amygdala part of the brain is where it's fight or flight.
Fear.
It's once you sense fear, you got to survive. And so guess what I started doing in that little whirlpool? I mean, it started spinning fast.
Started fighting.
I started fighting. And I'm, with my hands trying to swim up, and I got a life jacket on, and it pulls me under. I was freaking out. And then it popped me back up. And then I start fighting more, and I'm yelling to a couple guys over there, and it pulled me down again. I thought I was dying. I thought that was the end for Brett. And then it popped me up and disappeared. I fought for my life. And after that, I was exhausted. I don't know if you've ever had the fight or flight kick in like that, where you've been in, I think everybody has.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion, the amygdala in somebody's brain has triggered and you fight.
Yeah, probably I've had that. I think we've all had brief moments in time. Not like that. Not where I have to actually think about it over, minutes.
It felt like 35 minutes. It was probably 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But I was so exhausted after that, I couldn't even move. I just collapsed. And there's a reason why I'm bringing this up in the amygdala, the fight or flight. And I want you to think back, Brian, to the Hunsaker ancestors.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The big Hunsaker ancestors. And if you think back 300, 400, 500 years ago, let's say this. Picture yourselves, if you're listening to this podcast, and you're standing like on a hill, and all of your people and your village and everybody is over, 50 yards away or something. And that entire group, all of a sudden, just turns around and starts running, like sprinting off. What are you probably going to do?
Probably going to run after him or, follow him.
Why?
Yeah. There's probably danger and need to get out of the way. Great fear is near and you got to get out.
And so if there's fear, you follow the herd.
Yeah.
And that's how we're hardwired. That's how I survived, I want to say, that river when I was being pulled under, was because of that amygdala in your brain. That is that fight or flight. That is I fear for my life. I've got to survive. I've got to put food on the table. I need shelter. I need fire. Those things to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the herd mentality.
And it's part of our genetic makeup. It's who we are as humans.
It's part of our genetic makeup.
And it kept us alive 500 years ago. And
Can keep us alive today, too.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, all right, why in the world of investing is the herd mentality or that amygdala, why is it an investor's worst enemy?
Because making decisions based on fear and instead of facts is not good for your wealth long term.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Okay.
So I'm going to throw some things at you. Right now, all the pros, and I'm calling professional forecasts, are down on the year to basically neutral to where we are in the S&P right now. Fund managers have more cash, so they've sold their assets. They have more cash than they have, even more so than what they had in 2008. Okay. The put-to-call ratio, which I follow, which basically tells you how bearish or bullish options traders are. There's more puts purchased now than in any other time in history, which tells you people are buying basically insurance for their portfolio because they expect
the market to go down.
Yeah. Okay. Recession fears. Here's one that I love. Back in 2010, when I worked at TD Ameritrade, they put out what's called the IMX, which monitors all the retail investors at TD Ameritrade. And what are they doing? And it's at an extreme. And that extreme, do you think that extreme is buying stocks or do you think it's selling stocks?
Yeah, they're selling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about the herd. The herd is moving to cash. The consensus, don't get confused, the consensus is nothing but bearish out there for everybody. Okay, so what would you do if the entire herd has this survival instinct, I got to sell all my stocks and get out? What would you tell them?
And in financial markets, it's usually best to be a contrarian. Not always.
What does a contrarian mean?
Contrarian means doing the opposite of what everybody else is doing.
So if the herd is running,
then you should do just the opposite, run the other way, or
how hard is that?
Yeah, it's going against the crowd, and usually, and it's not. I mean, it's not always, but usually that is the right thing, especially when you're talking about financial markets. Now, when we're talking about individual securities, we're not talking about that. We're talking about financial markets in general. Following the herd is generally not a good idea for building wealth. You let's go back a couple of years, 2000, during the pandemic, the first part of the pandemic, and think about what happened in 2020. What was the herd doing in 2020? They were going crazy with speculation was going rampant. They were buying meme stocks and SPACs.
After the market fell 37%.
After the market fell. Well, we can even go back to that point. The herd was selling everything.
Yep.
And then, of course, it bounced back. And so, again, following a herd, you would have sold. And then the speculation got back into the market, and people were buying these meme stocks and SPACs, and speculation went crazy. That's what the herd was doing. And that was not the right move long term.
Okay, so here's a question for you. Let's move to housing for a second. Okay. As I've mentioned on this podcast, I keep track of the value of my home month to month. It's not priced daily like stocks, but month to month. And there was one point last year where the value of my home was down 25%. Okay.
From its high. From its high.
Yes, down 25%. And I know many friends that, same thing. Why do we have herd mentality with stocks, meaning people selling and getting scared, and you have these fluctuations in the market, but you don't have that in housing when housing was down almost as much as the S&P, if not more? Why is there that amygdala driving you crazy on the stock side, but not the housing side?
I think there's a couple of reasons. One is it's very easy to sell a stock. It's not easy to sell. It's not as easy.
Liquidity.
Liquidity. So it's
Yeah.
very easy. Just push a button and you're out. That's one. The other reason why I think people do it more often and more tempted or likely to sell stocks before they'd sell their home is you get a price every single day, and so when you see the price of your stock or your investment portfolio go down day after day, week after week, and your mind starts playing games with you, and the fear sets in, and you sell out of fear as opposed to rationally thinking about the fundamentals. Is this going to happen? Is this downward trend going to continue for the next 3, 5, and 10 years, or maybe I don't need this money 10 years down the road?
Yeah. Here's the other thing. I'm an old AM guy. I love listening to AM radio. And guess what I never hear on the AM radio or anywhere? The value of the homes in a particular zip code for the day is down 30% as investors are scared. Right? You never hear that. The media is never talking about the value of your home. So it's almost like, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. I know long term it's going to be fine. But the herd mentality, coupled with the fear of the media, gets that amygdala liquidity, also gets that little part of your fight or flight, and people freak out and want to sell.
Yeah. The financial media is definitely guilty of attributing a lot of fear to investors, and that's really what the whole conversation every single day on the different financial networks is. Should we get out of the market? Should we should we
trying to time it or whatever?
Yeah, trying to get in and get out. I think the other thing is a lot of times people look at stocks as this. It's not a real asset. It's a line on a computer screen or
ticker symbol
or your paper statement. The value on a paper statement. It's not real tangible. What people fail to realize is these are real businesses. As if you owned, I think if you owned there's a hotel near our office here. If you were the owner of that hotel, that's a real asset. Well, if you own Marriott stock, that's a real asset too. It's just a different form of ownership, but it's an actual real asset. And you got to think about your stocks. We don't like using the term stocks. We think about our businesses as they are real assets. They're real tangible. And you have an economic interest, ownership interest in the profits, the future profits of that business. And so always ask yourself, is this a business that's going to continue to grow and create value over time? And if the answer is yes, then you shouldn't fall into that fear.
You should treat it like your home.
Treat it like your home, or as if you owned the hotel in your local city.
So when fear is rampant and the herd is moving one way, okay? Like is what's happening now. What would you tell people to do when that's happening?
Ignore it. Ignore
the herd?
Ignore
the facts that stocks are down?
Ignore the herd. Maybe you turn off the television. Maybe you ignore your statement. At that, it's not going to. It doesn't do you any good.
We're looking at it for you.
Yeah, we're looking at it. But I mean, if that's something that creates fear for you, then you probably should just turn it off. And sometimes, a lot of times, I hear people say, "Oh, I just don't even look at my investment portfolio right now," because it's
probably not a bad idea.
It's too painful
for a lot of people. Although we're off to a great start of the year, which we can talk about next time.
But there's still a lot of fear out there.
Yeah, tons of fear.
Right.
So what would Buffett do when there's that much fear?
Yeah. So the last time I remember fear to similar levels to maybe actually a little greater fear than what we're dealing with right now in the financial markets was 2008 during the Great Financial Crisis. And that they call it the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis. That was the worst financial crisis that our country's been through since the Great Depression. And he wrote an article. In fact, I've used this article and this quote in the past, but he wrote an article in I think it was the New York Times on October 16th, 2008. Okay, remember, go back to October 16th.
October was ugly.
Well, 2008, the whole, especially the fall in October 2008, that was a really, really difficult time in financial markets. And Buffett wrote this. I think it's great. The title of the article is "Buy American I Am," and it says the financial world is a mess, both in the United States and abroad. Its problems, moreover, have been leaking into the general economy, and the leaks are now turning into a gusher. In the near term, unemployment will rise.
That's what we're probably going to see now.
We're seeing that. We're seeing this right
now. Yeah,
now.
we're seeing that.
And he could have written this today.
Yeah.
And it would fit right in today in the business environment we're in right now. He says, in the near term, unemployment will rise. In fact, that's what everybody's talking about. With the Fed raising interest rates, unemployment was likely to rise. Business activity will falter. Guess what? That's exactly what everybody's saying. And there is some business activity faltering. And the headlines will continue to be scary.
Amen. Sounds
like he could have written this yesterday.
That's the herd.
Yeah. And then this is what he said, the next paragraph. So, ... I've been buying American stocks.
I love that.
I love it.
And that's really the bottom line. Like, is we talk about following the herd and being contrarian. Okay, so what are we doing? Any cash that any clients have, it's bye week this week. Mm-hmm. I put a ton of work or a ton of money to work today, right? That's what we're doing, is we're buying these great assets that over the course of time will compound your wealth.
And guess what I did today? Just like we're doing for our clients. I bought more great American businesses today in my own portfolio. I just have to say this. The next paragraph, it says why. It says why. Why am I doing this? Why am I buying American stocks? And he says, a simple rule dictates my buying. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful.
That's a recipe right there.
That's it. He says, and most certainly fear is now widespread, gripping even the seasoned investor. And then he says, but fears regarding the long-term prosperity of the nation's many sound companies makes no sense. These businesses will indeed suffer earnings hiccups, as they always have, but most major companies will be setting new profits records 5, 10, and 20 years from now. And this could have been written yesterday. Exactly. Nothing has changed. But yet everybody focuses on, the weather forecast or the economic forecast. And ultimately, that's just noise. It's a distraction. It creates fear. Ignore all that and focus on buying and owning great American assets.
Yeah.
And forget about all the garbage out there.
So on February 15th, we've got a client quarterly investment meeting where we're going to tear apart a few of the businesses that we have purchased for clients. You can sign up for that in the email that you got for this podcast for. So look forward to that. But we're gonna talk about some of the most hated businesses, some of the most hated best businesses in the world, and why we love them, and why the herd long term will be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I would use the term fear or feared. People
than hated.
Yeah. I don't know, but maybe there's some hate there, I guess, but I think it's undeserved. But
yeah, anytime a stock goes down 30, 40, 50%,
well,
I think it's hated.
Yeah, right.
So if you remember back to a movie, and I can't remember the movie, but I remember the Indians' trick to killing the buffalo, and they would get them, and they'd chase them, and the buffalo would be in this herd just running. And guess where the Indians led them? To a cliff.
Oh, to a cliff.
And they just fall off the cliff.
That's
what movie is that?
Kevin Costner.
Is that Dances with Wolves?
Dances with Wolves. Yeah.
Tatanka.
Tatanka.
Following the herd in your finances will lead you off a cliff.
Yeah.
Right? Here's what Sir John Templeton said, and we'll leave it here. Think about where we are. Is there pessimism in the market? Is there optimism? Is there euphoria right now? This is what he says. And this is one of my favorite quotes ever. Bull markets are born on pessimism, grow on skepticism, mature on optimism, and die on euphoria. Mm-hmm. You think about what we've just been through. We just went through euphoria 2 years ago. Now we're in pessimism. And it's just a matter of time. Could have already started, I don't know. But that new bull market starts.
Yeah.
And then grows on skepticism. Because you're not going to see a positive headline for a long time.
Yeah.
So stay the course. Buy when others are fearful. Amen, brother. And ignore the amygdala unless you're in a river. You're in a whirlpool.
Or you have a bear chasing you.
Yeah.
Then run.
Are you supposed to run?
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to fake dead.
No, that's a black. I think that's the black bears. You faked it. Let's see.
We'll do.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
Do something.
Yeah.
To survive.
Climb a tree.
With that, my friends, until next time. Bye-bye.